Welcome everybody to another episode. Right as promised, we're going to jump straight into adding some Game Center functionality. This is what separates the men from the boys, the women from the girls, or whatever. Sorry, I'm in a weird mood. Okay, let's jump straight into our game initialize script. We need to add a new namespace. So we're going to say using oh my gosh, using Unity Engine dot social platforms. So that will let us use the social API, which is what we want to do. And what we're going to do, actually, this is bugging the heck out of me. Let's just leave it. Okay. So we've got an iOS section here, and we've got a PC section here. What we want to do is create a, we're going to call it a Game Center section. And the first thing we want to do is create a public, actually private, actually none of those things. We want to create a public static string leaderboard one ID, and actually we don't need to make it public static. Actually, now think about it, we can just make it private leaderboard ID equals, and make sure it's actually little l, leaderboard ID equals, and this is going to be whatever we in a later episode we're going to set up the leaderboard ID identification string inside of iTunes Connect. But for the meantime, I'm going to put in a placeholder, and obviously I'll have to blur it in the future. So for now, I'm just going to have a placeholder. What's really good is to just have something really simple like game name. So I'll just say SP for Super Keegan, or maybe just Super Keegan. Super K underscore high score underscore leaderboard one underscore one. And maybe we'll add an ID. Okay, so we've created that private leaderboard there. It needs to be a private string. Oh my gosh. My head is not screwed on straight today. So it needs to be a private string leaderboard ID, and this is what we'll just use for iTunes Connect later. And then we just want to jump straight down to our Game Center section, and we're going to well, actually, no. First of all, we'll go to Start, and we'll create a. Actually, no. We're going to Start. Man, I'm so indecisive. We're going to say social dot local user dot authenticate, and now it's going to ask us for a method that's going to help us authenticate. So we're just going to say process authentication. Okay, so that's going to throw an error, obviously. But if we go down to our Game Center section, we can write void process authentication, and have a return a bool, which stands for success, which is called success, sorry, and have a if success equals true. Just so everyone knows, if you got one line of code, if you just write if success, that also means if success equals true, or if you'd say if success with an exclamation mark, that means if success equals false. But I find, especially when I'm teaching, it's easier to just write if success equals true, because then like it's just as easy to read. It's not as easy to type, obviously, but it's easy to understand if you're looking at code and you're new to the system. So that's, if anyone's wondering, you can do it the other way, but that's how I like to do it. We're going to set to chuck a debug.log, and it's going to be authentication or authenticated, checking achievements. Now, I don't actually know if we're going to have any achievements, but it's good to just have that in there anyway. And we're going to say social dot load achievements process loaded achievements, and then we can obviously copy this. Actually, we just need this, and we just write else authenticated failed authentication. Cool, and then we need this this guy here, so we can say void process loaded achievements. Yes, that is a crazy storm going on right now. Achievement. We need an array, which could be an array. Call it achievements. And then we're going to say if achievements dot length equals 0, debug.log error, no achievements found. Else, it's a massive storm going on here at the moment in Sunshine Coast, Queensland. We can just say got plus achievements dot length plus achievements. Fantastic. So that handles that if we ever want to put achievements in our game. But we need to create something for getting our getting our highest score. So just under that, we can create a public static void high score check. And it's going to return a bool. I'm just going to return results. And we're just going to say if results equal true, then debug dot log. Like, once again, it's really important to have this kind of stuff in here because it's score submission successful, because it is important because if when we're testing this, we're not going to get much feedback if it fails. So we need to kind of have you know, as many debugs as we possibly can, and then we can just say else so if results equals true, score submission successful, otherwise score submission failed. And seems like there's a problem here. Process loaded achievements. Oh man, my spelling. You guys probably know that well and true by now. Okay, so then the last thing we need to do is just go to where our load game center thing is here, and literally all we need to do is write social dot report score. We need to we need to cast this as a long. And what do we need to cast? Well, data management dot token high score to leaderboard 1ID and high score to high score check. And then we just need to write social. This is what actually loads Game Center dot show leaderboard UI. There, done. So, providing we don't get any errors, that should work out just fantastic. Okay, so on your computer it won't work, but if you once we get it all set up in iTunes Connect, it should work. When we click that button, it should post your score to Game Center and also load your score. So, yeah. So, just a heads up, what's happening is you've got a, just to go over everything, we've got a string here, which will be a private string that obviously I'm going to change later. Yours will be different to this. Yours will be, you know, whatever your game name is, high score at leaderboard.1, whatever you want it to be. It just needs to be the same as what it is in iTunes Connect. And then we're just got to have, when someone clicks on the crown ranking logo, which is this logo here, it reports the score, turns the integer into a long, which is a different type of. It's the same as an integer. It's just you can have more characters. If you want to look up data types, just use Google because that will be your friend, and you'll be able to learn there's like longs and bits and bytes and things like that. That, you know, different amounts of data that can be held. So we need to turn it into a long because that's what Game Center needs. But don't worry, it's exactly the same. Everything's the same. And then we're reporting the score. We're reporting the high score to leaderboard 1. And then we're doing a check, and then once that's been called, it's been reported, then it shows the leaderboard UI and loads that bad boy up. And then down here, these are just for processing authentication and process loading achievements. So if you ever want to create some achievements, you can. And and this is the same for your high score. If it fails, it will let you know. Awesome. Okay, guys. Next thing. Okay, so let's jump back into our code. One thing we just forgot to do, actually, now I think about it, is copy, not that it matters, but just, I like to have it in there. Just for the PC inputs, even though it won't load on a PC, but hey, it's just good to be consistent. Okay, so next thing we want to jump into is go to no, not sprites. Go to prefabs token, and we are going to add back our token script. Now, I don't actually know if I took that off in a episode or not, but I've taken it off mine and now I'm putting it back on. Anyway, so let's first of all let's create. What we want to do is the coins fall down, and a player can actually just sit here or somewhere and dodge one tree at a time until he's got like thousands of coins on the screen, and then just get them all at once, and then be pretty smart for a player to do that. We want to stop players from doing that because that would be cheating or exploiting the game. So we're going to create a private float life timer, and we're going to equal it to 7.0f. So that's a good amount of time, 7 seconds. And we're just going to say life timer minus equals time dot delta time, and then we're going to say underneath here if life timer becomes less than 0.1, less than 0 I suppose, then do some stuff here. And that stuff we want to do is we want to say game object dot get component sprite renderer dot color equals color dot lerp equals color dot lerp, and we want to go from whatever we are now, so get component dot sprite renderer dot color to, so remember color A to color B, to new color. I'm Australian, so we spell color differently. New color 1110. So that's 100% in each one of them, except for the last one, which is 0, which means it's going to be an alpha. And over, let's say, 2 times time dot delta time. And okay, and then if we say if get component sprite renderer dot color dot A is less than 0.1, destroy game object. Not game data, destroy game object. Okay, and that should work. So if we go back to our game, hopefully there's no errors. No bad errors anyway, and our token is there, and we just press play. Back there. Start the game, walk back and forth. Let's just watch that coin. For 7 seconds, it should start disappearing. Yep, and pop, disappears. That's awesome. So watch these ones here. They'll start to fall down when the others disappear. And that's what we want. Adds a bit more fluidity, or whatever you want to call it. Adds a bit more zing to the game. And yeah, happy days. Okay, so we're basically at that point where our game is done, pretty much. Except there are a couple of little things that need to be tested. Obviously, Game Center needs to be tested. The game needs to be, fleshed out a little bit more. Things need to be a little bit more prettier. It'd be great to change some of the colors, maybe change some of the log sizes and things like that. I'm not actually sure if it's worth going through that stuff step by step. We'll be here for hours, and I'll be explaining things that we've already done like a million times. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the game, and I'm just going to adjust the art, maybe change the audio effects, maybe change the music a little bit, just adjust things to just add a little bit more high quality polish to it all. And if there's anything major, I'll obviously point it out at the end. But right now, use this time obviously to work on your game, make it as fleshed out and as good looking as you want it to make. And yeah, I'll see you after the polish. Okay, everybody, we are back, and as you see, lots has changed, especially the appearance of the game. So let me just run through a few things. I actually found a fair few bugs that I'll talk about, and a fair few things that I've actually adjusted. There's more than I actually thought that I wanted to adjust. So the first thing you're probably noticing is we've got a purple background and a golden yellow background, and the color palette's completely different. The reason I did this is I went to a good website called google.com. That was a lame joke. Sorry about that. Went to google.com and I looked up the color palette, and I remember doing a course a while back on like digital tutors or something, and they talk about how like when people make color decisions, they make them based out of like logic, not just like out of what they think looks good. So I'm no artist, I'm no expert. I got my friend to do most of the art for this, but Lucy, check him out in the description. But basically, if you use the opposite color to whatever is on the wheel, it'll generally it'll work well for whatever you're doing. And so for our game, we have a lot of yellow, the yellow coins, yellow logo, yellow hair, yellow, like kind of made that yellow. So I made the background like a violet color because it's opposite the yellow and the orange, opposite the blue violet, which is kind of the color scheme that we're going with. The same reason that like if you watch Transformers and things like that, they have like an orange. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with color grading in film, but in color grading, you pull certain colors to get a certain look, a certain feel. Like for example, the Book of Eli has a very gray kind of sepia like color tone to show that it's like to pull out certain emotions. And in Transformers, they use a very orange. You'll notice everything. If you go look at some screens of Transformers, you'll see that everything in the foreground is like orange, and nearly everything in the background is blue. And the reason they do that is like so the image looks awesome and relates to the audience target audience they want to hit. Which, by the way, isn't my target audience. I hate Transformers. Anyway. If we so the reason that they're the reasons I decided to change this, and I went to indie game forums and I posted some screenshots and stuff, and it seemed to take a lot better than the old style. So I thought, yeah, let's run with it. Even though it doesn't make sense, let's run with it. Who cares if we've got gold bricks and purple background? It's just a silly iPhone game that we're making. Cool. Next thing you'll notice is we got these icons up here, and I got Lucio, my friend, just to make the sprites, and you'll see down here got the sprites, and it's just the same as I entered. I imported all the multiple, and it's just sitting on one animation that just loops over and over and over again. There's no scripting required, so if you press play, you'll see they just like burn over and over again. The other thing that I did is add the high score down here, because we want the player to know what their high score is and what it's doing. Like we don't want them to just have to go into game center every time they want to check the high score. So they need something to like aim to. So there's a high score, but what's cool is if you click it, it'll go to the total amount that I've collected, which I actually just reset before, so that's why it's at 1. Otherwise that wouldn't make sense. But basically I'm hoping this number will get to the tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. I do have a friend who is addicted to the games I make for some reason. Ash Malone, he got like ungodly amounts of coins in my last game. So yeah. So yeah, so we got your total and your high score, and I added a cool little whistle effect. I'll go into that after. But yeah, basically that's the case of changing things. I also bring in I worked on a logo that I actually designed with Lucio's art, and you'll see that it's got like these sharp edges. The reason I did that is because on the iPhone, obviously it crops it around, so it's like a nice rounded square. So you won't actually see those hard edges, and it actually looks pretty nice when you see it on an iPhone. I also adjusted the logs to be a different size. So I was finding that the logs were actually a little bit too too long. I found that, and people, it was getting frustrating for people because they were like, it's almost like they just needed to be a little bit shorter for the gameplay to work out. They actually don't look as good, I don't think, but they still, need to be shorter. I also added I added this for the when you click to the heart. It's like a heart with a plus sign on it. I added this for invincibility and changed that a little bit for the explosion of coins. And I think that's pretty much all I added. Oh, the debris. I actually made the debris look like actual debris. It looks really cool when you see it in game. And that's about it. I did some just some little art things around there, and that's basically what I did in regards to art. Now, I also made a different canvas. Now, this is canvas foreground. So in canvas foreground is the bottom menu text. We want that to sit up the top. So I created a foreground canvas which sits like in the foreground. We got an overlay canvas now that sits over the top, and that's so when the screen vibrates at the end, everything but the UI doesn't vibrate, so it gives it a cool effect. And then the background, which holds our score. And the reason that was important is because you need I wanted things to go across the background and also across the foreground, but I didn't want, obviously, you need this to be in the foreground, and it got to be a little bit complicated. But basically, it's in world space under the background sorting layer. The background one is obviously the overlay is just screen space overlay, and the foreground is just world space foreground and ordinary layer set to 0, and everything else is as is. I'll just show you, just for argument's sake, I think it's project settings, tags and layers. Go to sorting layers. You see I've got my background, default, and foreground, and that's what I want. And the hearts in here, they all put in the foreground, but at 0, and all the logs will go over the hearts, which is what I wanted. So, and the other thing I also added was the I actually changed the size of the hearts and things like that. So basically, it's just lots of tweaks of how the game looked. Now I can talk about what I did in regards to audio, and gameplay bugs and things like that. Okay, so the first thing I'll talk about is the game initialize script. So obviously we created this here another episode. All I did is add an audio source menu whistle. That's literally all I did. So up here I just created a public audio clip menu whistle. We've done this like a million times, and I created a menu whistle like that, which was just literally me recording it with my iPhone headphones in Audacity down here. And then also the start game whoosh. I thought that like the more audio you can cram into your game, for this game anyway, the better. So just when the game starts, just in where is it? I think it might be, yep, start game. So get component audio source, play one shot, start whoosh, add 0.3 because I recorded it quite a high amount. And that's some of the audio that I put in. Now, some of the other audio I want to talk about is up in Object Spawner. I added a audio clip for the trees popping, and that's for when. Let me just adjust this. Let's just leave that actually, and adjust the gap tree to 5 and 10. So we get that, and you'll notice when we play the game, does that, zooms in, and then in 10 seconds, or 5 to 10 seconds, we should get the trees. So that's the new debris. It looks pretty cool. And you notice that cool popping effect, and also the same spot 3 times in a row. Cool. So you notice that sweet popping effect. So the way I achieved that is I created like a tree rumble, a tree swoosh, a gap tree rumble, gap tree swoosh, and a gap tree pop. They're just random names that I saw fit. And down in the spawn gap trees, I created a it's very, very simple. I created a I wrote gap tree group, which is the tree group, if you remember. I added a component, audio source, and then I got that component, or gap tree dot get component audio source dot pitch equals 0.5. So I set the pitch at half, so it'll be like, half of what it normally is. And then inside this loop, all I did is write gap tree group dot get component audio source play one shot gap tree pop 0.5, and then so that's the volume. So I played the audio, and then straight after that I changed the pitch of that audio up by 0.1 by saying get component audio source pitch equals gap tree group dot get component audio source dot pitch plus 0.1 f, and that's it. And that's what makes that cool effect. And then obviously down here I added I changed the pitch back to 1. I played the gap tree rumble, so like the rumble before they fall, and then as they fall they play the swoosh noise. So when the gravity scale gets turned back on, and that's it. That's as simple it is. And the other thing I did, which I thought was pretty cool, is I created instead of having an audio clip, collect tokens, Keegan Pain, power-ups, or explosion of tokens, I created, instead of just having singular ones like pain, I created an array in each one. So we got an array of each one, and then what happens is when it plays, like say for example, when you collect a token, it plays one shot. What does it play? Well, collect tokens, random range 0 to collect tokens dot length at 0.5. We've done this a million times before. It's the same thing, but just with an audio source. We know how to do that. And the same thing with power-ups. And I actually got my friend Keegan to come around, and he's the guy that the game is based about. I'll tell you the story one day. And I can get rid of that. And he came around and actually recorded his voice for the audio. So it actually has this classic Keegan moan throughout it all, which is really, really fun. And same thing for the power-ups. If health is less than 3, then if health is less than 3, health plus plus. So he'll go, oh yeah, or say something like that when he gets that. And same for invincibility, and for everything like that. And yeah, so it's seriously just this line of code that does that. Now in back into Unity, if we go to audio, you'll notice I got heaps of them, and I named them all like Keegan Pain 1, Keegan Pain 2, Keegan Pain 3, Keegan Pain 4 and 5, and so on. And then inside of the player, I just drop them over. So I've got the collect token noises, which I'm actually not. I don't actually like the fact that it's a different noise for every token. I think that should be just the same every single time, but I'll fix that in a sec. But with the Keegan Pain and Keegan power-ups and explosion of tokens, I think it's actually a cool effect. So if I press play, give this game a test. So get the coin. See how it's different there? I didn't really like that. See, and he makes that, and he makes a different noise every time he gets hit. It actually doesn't fit with the game very well. Like I'll admit it. It doesn't. It's not the greatest audio for the game, because the game's very retro and it's very clean audio. But in saying that, I don't really care, because it's a game about my friend Keegan, and I'm just gonna leave it like that. And that's what I've decided to do. Your game might be different. That's cool. So that's seriously all I did. And same with the power-ups. When you collect the power-ups, you'll go like, oh yeah, or something like that, and it's really cool and happy, and everything is good. Okay, and I think that's all the audio stuff I need to talk about. And the other thing I need to talk about is something that I did in game initialize. So you'll notice down here, I've got all this code here. This is how we originally actually Yeah, this is the original code we had. There's the float t, while, and all this stuff. But I've added an else in here and an if statement around it, obviously, an if and an else. So the if statement is if data management.datamanagement.token high score is less than 1000, which it always is, then at this stage, then it's going to do this. But if it's more than 1000, well, eventually we'll change that. But if it's more than 1000, we're going to do this. And all this is just a shorter version of this. So instead of zooming in to the changing the camera's transform position and zooming in and turning on the speech bubble and turning, things like that, literally all it does is move, puts the menu text active to false, sets the hearts to true, makes it so you can start the game, makes the main logo shoot up, makes the David logo shoot left, makes the crown logo shoot right, and then yields for 0.1 second because we're doing the while loop, and then that's it. The game started, and I think we want that because people will get it's frustrating if you just want to jump straight back into the game. I think the games you should be able to, especially games like this, you should be able to jump straight back into. So if I say less than 10, go back to it and press play. You'll notice instead of the menu coming up as it normally would, it just goes, and then we can play the game, and the game just starts like that. And I think that's really cool. It's like almost like that other section we were doing was almost like a tutorial, and now this is like now people once they're over 10, I'm gonna actually make this 25. Once they're over 25, they know how to play the game. Don't need to show that anymore. We're good. Awesome. So I've talked about the skipping of the tutorial, and I've talked about the audio. Now let's talk about the biggest bug that plagued me for days. Yes, it's actually been weeks since I did the other part of this one video. So over in the data management script, I honestly reinstalled new versions of Unity. I installed patch versions of Unity. I installed old versions of Unity, downloaded them on my horrible internet, yeah, I did that, and I put in bug reports because I was certain that the problem was with Unity and not with my code. Turns out I was wrong. Now it's the first time I've ever thought that it's been a problem with Unity. I usually assume that my code's wrong, but I couldn't understand why this worked in all my other games, but on an iPhone it crashed. Now, if any of you have tried to test this on an iPhone prematurely, you'll probably have come into the same error. Basically, what was happening is there's a couple of things. One, we need to have this if statement inside of awake. Otherwise, what it does is create a new data game object every single time we reload the level, and that's not what we want. So if data management equals num, don't destroy this game object, data management equals this. Else, if data management does not equal this, destroy the game object. And that's just a simple line of code. If you watch the video that I linked in the previous episode with Mike Geig, if you type in data persistence on YouTube, you can find the video, data persistence Unity with Mike Geig, and it's like a whole explanation about all this stuff. It's really, really simple. The problem I was having is the game was saving on the computer, on my Mac. I'm pretty sure it would have been the same on a PC. 100% fine. No problem, no exceptions, nothing. But when I put it on the iPhone, it wouldn't throw an exception, it wouldn't crash, it just wouldn't run the code. And that's actually really strange for Unity. Normally Unity is very good at pointing out like, hey, you screwed up here. But it just wasn't. And I went through like character by character of my old code because I literally was at wit's end. And I found that the one thing that my old code had, or how I usually do it, and this code doesn't have, is one character, and that is the slash. Yes, that's right. In the code that you guys have, it's literally just file.create application.system.dataPath plus gameinfo.dat. And in my other games, I have a slash there. And the slash is important because obviously, if you're going to, like in a file system, you've got like Windows, C or C drive, Windows, and you have, and the slashes, go, like you have slashes between certain folders. But for some reason it was working on a Mac and a PC, and I'm pretty sure the reason is because it like Windows, computers are a lot more open. This is just a guess. If anyone has the actual reason, let me know in the description. Like, let me know in the comments. It'd be wonderful. But I'm sure that the computers can work out. Okay, they're just going to try to create a game info.dat. But phones don't have that same ability because they're not so open source. They're more of a closed system. So you need to explicitly say, well, you got to have a slash, which is you should anyway. Like, you shouldn't need, like, oh, I should have put the slash in there. I don't know why I missed it. So I put a slash there, and I put a slash there, and I put a slash there, tested it on my iPhone, and bang, everything works fine. The bugs I was having are not happening anymore, and I was getting problems with like the UI not responding. I was having problems with like the game just like never running the game over coroutine down here, because it would run. It would check for this, and then it would throw exceptions, or it would do this, and like it wouldn't throw an exception, but it just wouldn't work. And so yes, put the slash in there. That is a huge mistake on my behalf, and I apologize if anyone's been tearing out their hair. I'm hopefully I've got to you in the comment section before you decide to quit on the project. Anyway, guys, that was probably the biggest major bug in the code. The other bug that I found was when the player, if we go to player collide script, when the player gets invincibility, what it does is it says can take damage equals false, and then at the end can take damage equals true after it's run the invincibility coroutine. That's great, but what happens also is we've got our can't get hurt coroutine here as well. So for example, if the player, so I'll explain this better, sorry. And at the start, it says can take damage equals false and can take damage equals true. So what was happening is if our player hit a log and they were in that cycle where they were still blinking, and then they collected a invincibility power up, they would turn invincible, but only for a very short amount of time. And the reason is because it's still running this coroutine, and then at the end of the coroutine it sets it to true, which then makes this not work, like the main component of this not work, which is the ability to get hurt. And so we need to fix that, and we can fix that right now. So I suppose we'll go straight up to the top and create a private bool is in vin, that's fine. And we'll equal it to false. Cool. Then we'll just say is invin, it stands for invincibility, and then then we just need to go to I'm getting lost here. This part here, and just say if is invin equals to true, and this is and then can take damage equals true, but else it won't run it. And this is obviously a hack and slash way of coding it, but it was so close to the end of their project, totally fine to just do this. It's actually, we've been doing hack and slash and some advanced stuff throughout the whole project. So take what you want from what you want. And then so on top of invincibility, can take damage equals false, we want to also say is invincibility running equals true, because it is running. And actually this needs to be is invisible equals false, because if it's not running equals false. And then we just need to set this back down at the bottom to false. Simple solution for a simple problem. Cool. And that is, if I'm not forgetting anything, I think that is everything that actually I think, let me just check also if invincibility token, I'm not actually sure if we destroy it. Invincibility token, invincibility. No, I don't think we destroy it. So under destroys the game object, it destroys trig.gameObject, and we also want to do the same thing for invincibility token. So destroys the game object, creates a power-up audio effect, and starts coroutine. Last thing, I want to, inside of, I'll say last thing, but probably like another 10 things. Inside of here, get component, audio source, play one shot, collect token. We are going to just change this to collect token. That's it. And we are going to change this from array just to one thing. And then same thing for, actually scrap that. We will leave that exactly how it was, and create a new public audio clip collect normal token, and we're going to just collect normal token in here instead. Cool. So that means that when we get the big token, it's going to play a random sound effect, and that is all happy days. And if we collect a normal token, it'll collect a normal token noise. We just got to assign that in the inspector. I won't bore you guys with doing that because, well, maybe I suppose I should probably do that. We've got audio, and go back to player collide, collect normal token. Let's just drag over this one. Press play, give it a spin. Cool, now they're both the same. Alright guys, well I think that is it. I think unless anything else comes up, which I can almost guarantee it will, we are pretty much done inside of Unity. Make sure everything you want is absolutely fine. And we are going to move over to iTunes Connect and uploading it to Apple and testing in the next episode. So stay tuned, guys. And next episode we are going to kill it in this series, and we are going to take on the world or something inspirational. I'm sorry, I've had too much coffee. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace, love, happiness, all that kind of stuff. Like, favorite, subscribe, send it to your friends. If you've got any questions and I'm not answering on YouTube, hit me up on Twitter and go, "Oi, Dave, answer this question, you jerk," and I will probably, most likely, maybe get to it as soon as I can. Alright, thanks guys. See you then. Bye.